And I picked out that 80% of the prosecution are exactly the same thing. And I'm like, well, why are we selling boilers to people who cannot legally fit them? The UK Parliament said you'll never get that through. You need like a Grenfell type thing to happen for real change to come about. And I said, well, we nearly had that in Inverness Royal Academy. That's a whole high school. Boom. The top 10 drink drivers in the UK, they were all off a building site. And he said, I started trying to introduce it so that if you went to work on site, first thing you do an alcohol test. The resistance he met, unbelievable. You can't do that. You can't, because they know the extent of the problem and they don't want to address it.
Hi guys, welcome to Taylor Talks Trades. I'm your host, Jamie Taylor. Thank you for joining me today, and remember to hit subscribe so you can help us grow the channel and bring you more episodes like this one. Today I'm joined by Jimmy Hendry from Jimmy Hendry Consultancy. He spoke about the issues we face in the trades, including people fitting boilers who aren't gas safe registered, and the dangers of this continuing to happen because anyone can currently buy a boiler without being checked for certification. He also discusses other issues within the trades that people don't often want to talk about. So let's get into the show and see what this is all about. Hi Jimmy, welcome to the show, mate.
Hi, how you doing? All right?
I'm good, mate. I'm going to start where I always start. How did you get into the trades?
I fell into the trade by mistake more than anything else. I left school 1992, end of 92, wasn't doing anything. And my late friend, Grant said to me one day, he says, what are you doing with yourself? And I said, nothing. Why? And he's like, because I'm looking for tradesmen at King the Builders. And I went, and I phoned them up when I got home, and here we are, 32 years later. So still at it, but no, enjoy it. It's great fun.
Almost everyone we've had on, they go through that story. They say I fell into it, or in fact, I think that's the main one. I fell into the trades, and it's just. It just continues and continues. So as soon as you say it, I always smile because I go, there's another one. We're about 100 in now, and it's like everybody almost says that.
Well, same thing. It was actually the plumber's job that had come up, and he said, they're looking for plumbers. And I was like, yeah. And actually, we got a skills book, like careers book at school, and it had what every career did. And I actually had to go up and look this up, and I was like, plumbers, all right, we fit toilets, we do that. Okay, fair enough. And when I went along for the job interview, as I say, it was A&L King, the Builders in Auchterarder. They were fairly big in the Central Belt 90s onto the 2000s. And Alan King says, what apprenticeship do you want? Because I can give you a brickie, joiner, plumber, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I've come for a plumber's job, might as well take that. And he went, do you know what plumbers do? And I was like, I had to look it up. And he went, I'm a plumber. And I went, you've done all right for yourself. So, I mean, he sold his business for something like £80 million to Stuart Milne. So he'd obviously done some right.
And had he built that for the ground up?
He built it for the ground up. Him and his brother, it was Alan and Lionel, but Lionel had left the business and Alan just skyrocketed. I mean, he was into everything. I mean, you had houses in Stirling, Plean, we had sites in like pretty much all over central Scotland, Blairgowrie, Scone, Cooper, massive site in Cooper. And into that, we then got into Tesco's, so we're doing all the Tesco maintenance for Scotland. So, I mean, you could drive from Auchterarder down to Haddington to tighten up a set of taps. Wow. That was your day, and then you're back up, and they'd say, stop at that site on the way up, fit that bathroom suite if you've got time, But we were doing monsoon, although it accessorises part of the monsoon business, so we're doing all those stuff as well. And done Gleneagles, Highland Spring, all those massive businesses.
Everywhere really as well.
Aye. So you were getting the new houses, plus you were getting the hotels, you were getting Tesco, so you were getting a full scope of everything pretty much.
This is when our trade was a real trade. We were talking about this off camera before we came on, but it's almost like now trades are getting diluted. Somebody gets one part of being a plumber or gas engineer, or one part of...
We were just speaking about that actually. I've just come out of a BPEC meeting as well. I'm on the two boards of the British Plumbing Employment Council, and we were talking about that, and we're saying that there's a greater fragmentation, shall we say, of the trade, where I'm now a heating specialist, or I'm an air source specialist, and I'm a gas boiler specialist. You've not got somebody who'll do everything all in the one, and it can be quite difficult. I was a complaints handler for SNIPEF, the Scottish and Northern Ireland Plumbing Employment Federation, for the last 2 years. And that's one of the things that they're noticing as well, is it's trying to get someone with a core set of skills who can actually do everything. I mean, the younger guys want to specialize in one area, and that's it pretty much. And you can understand their business model, because you can't. I mean, you could spread yourself too thin.
Yeah.
You know.
What do you think's changed then in terms of, so your apprenticeship there, you were getting a bit of everything with different tradesmen, so you were
Aye.
learning each individual part?
It's. I mean, the biggest amount of apprenticeships we see are still one-man bands. A boy and his apprentice.
Yep.
You know, you'll maybe get bigger companies. The problem you get with a bigger company is, what you tend to find is, they'll give an apprentice, they'll give 3 apprentices to one guy, and the guy's maybe 24, 25. His time's no longer himself. And I've noticed, you know, I did lecturing for the last 9 years, and I've also noticed that you're getting an older clientele coming through. You're getting they're more 20 to 26-year-olds.
Yeah.
Whereas when I served my time January 94 to January 98. And we were all 16 to 18-year-old. You know, we're all pretty much the same age. We had a couple of older guys. Ray Smith, he's got Modern Developments on Perth. Ray was 23 when he started serving his time. He's done extremely well for himself. And we had another guy, Andy, who was a bit older as well. But apart from that, we were all that core age. Whereas nowadays, you're getting that whole kind of, you can get everyone from 16 up to 35.
Yeah.
And I mean, the oldest apprentice I've seen is 50. And I mean, somebody said, when his time's out, you'll be retiring, you know. So it's like, aye, I can see that. But you're starting to see more and more women coming through as well. And you're getting an idea of the differences that I didn't really take on board. Like, the clothing for women is tailored in a different way. I just thought work trousers were work trousers, but no, there is a difference in there as well. And I mean, I've just bought Fee Allen's book. Fee Allen talks about it, and she's like, you know, it's trying to get more and more women through. And I can understand that, but there's a different side to that. In that, I mean, I was following an older apprentice, shall we say. She was female. She's coming through the trades, and she's like, you know, I'm trying to get an apprenticeship, but, you know, I'm trying to get a job as a plumber, sort of thing. But they won't provide me with a van. And I went, well, a van's not given. You know, if you start with a company, yeah, it might be a big company. And I was lucky in that where I served my time, you were given a van.
Yep.
And most of the companies after that, if you needed a van, you were given a van. But a lot of people just think it's an accepted, you will get a van.
Yeah,
and
it's
I'm
an
like,
entitlement nowadays.
exactly. And you're going, it's not really though. Do you know what
We
I
see
mean?
a bit of that as well. Like with the roofing business, it's, you know, guys like, oh, where's my van? And it's like, no, but you're working with him, and you'll just jump in. There's a team of 2 or a team of 3, and
Aye.
they'll just go in that one van. They want to take 2 vans to the job just so they can have their own and then go away.
I mean, I mean, because we were doing such like small tasks on certain things, it made sense for us all to have our own wee van. But at the same, say wee van, most of us had transits, but at the same time, it wasn't like a given. And there were certain things as well, like she'd said at one point, you know, I can only really work, you know, between like school hours. So like once I drop my kids off, you know, I'd start at 9:30, but then, you know, I'd need to be finished for 3:00 for picking the kids up. And it's like, nobody's going to give you a job, because if that was, you know, I'm not just, you know, it's not just the female side. If that was anybody and they said to me, all right, I'll work 9:30 to 3, I'd be like, so I'm not taking you on. I'm not being funny, but I need somebody who's going to be there for 7 in the morning until 5 at night, realistically, you know, to do that job.
And do you think that's then, so it's it's not about almost like a sexism thing?
No,
it's just literally like if that was a man, it would be the same answer. Like, we can't accommodate that.
We can't accommodate that as a business, and I think that's the reality. And I mean, I think because she'd come in, she was like, oh, you know, I should be entitled to this, and I should be, you know, plumbers get this, plumbers like that. Aye, but you're talking about someone who has gone through a full apprenticeship and has done these things. And I mean, we've all been there. Do you know what I mean? We've been at that stage where you have to take your car to the job because you've not been given a van. And, you know, I worked for Vaughan Engineering in Broxburn for a few years. None of their guys had a van. They took their car up and they were paid for taking their car up the road. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's that reality. And not to be funny, but I think when you're looking at trades, there's still quite a backward mindset in that kind of area. You know, there's a lot of things that people just think are a given. And I mean, I lived in Namibia for a few years, and when I came back, I'd got a job down in Suffolk for a year. And my partner at the time, she says, "Oh, when you starting work?" And I said, "I've got a job with this guy. I'm starting in the next 2 weeks. I'll have to go up to Scotland and get my tools." And she was like, "Why?" And I went, "I'll need my tools to do my job." And she was like, "You've got to provide your own tools." And I said, yeah, it's just a given. And she's like, "All right." She says, "Oh, because like she says, I wouldn't go to an office though and have to take my own computer or my own laptop." And I went, no. And I did think about it and thought, has she got a point? You know, but it was honestly like that kind of sudden realization. And you think, aye, you know, do we need to move on? And I mean, certain employers will give you certain tools. If you damage a tool, they'll say, "I'll just stick that on the account and we'll square you up for it," sort of thing. But not everyone does, you know.
It is interesting because there is a real entitlement. I think some of it though comes from when young people come into the trade, they then, like, if your company's a certain way, like they just see everyone's got vans, or
Aye.
you know, they just think that's how it'll be. They don't really know any other way. I guess when I first came into it, I would have been 2006. So I think trades were. I think when you went back to when you said you were like 94, round about that time, I think there would have been stronger apprenticeships back then. And I think they've been getting worse and worse since.
Aye.
But for me, 2006 coming in, like I actually really wanted it. I just had a desire to get a trade. So like I was just geared up for, right, I'll get the bus to, it was just the next town up
Aye.
from me, but it was Armadale where I was from, and it was just Whitburn up the road. So I was like,
Aye.
right, we'll need to get a bus. But actually, they sent someone to come and pick us up in the morning, which was great. So, and that sort of ended up always being the thing. You just got a lift in, so it was great until I started driving. But for me, like when I first got my first wages in, I'd got the bus up to Whitburn, and there was a build base up there, and I went along and I got a nail bag, and I got like a foot rule, and just some like hammer and basic things, tape measure and Stanley knife or whatever. And I was like, that's my tools, I've got that now. And it showed a keenness and a willingness. But I think now everybody does, I think there is an entitlement now where it's, where's my tools?
Aye.
Oh, I didn't really want to spend my money on tools. And you're like, but do you want to be a trades? Well, I'm going to say tradesman, but a tradesman or tradeswoman or tradesperson. Do you want to be that or no? Because for me, a lot of the desire's burnt out now. It's almost like an entitlement of, well, I'm showing up, so you need to do everything else.
Aye.
A wee bit like school, do you know? It's like, well, I've turned up, and if you go to school and just turn up, but you don't apply yourself, you're coming out with nothing.
See, I mean, I think, especially, I mean, I've spent half my life lecturing, and what you tend to find with that is there is that kind of, you know, I've come, that's it, you know. Whereas before we started college, you know, like I went along, got an A4 book, I went and got pens, pencil, I got a ruler, I had my calculator, so that, you know, if the boys set off with hand, you could start doing stuff, you know. But I mean, you get apprentices now who they turn up with nothing. But I think one of the big problems that I find is a lot of businesses don't see the relevance of a college.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, when was the last time you interacted with college? Other than going and sitting a day course or something like that. Did you? Because like colleges will welcome anybody in to go, right, what you doing? Right. Okay, how's that relevant to what I'm doing? And I mean, my journeyman, he would always, you know, what were you doing at college this week? And you'd be like, oh, I've done that and I've done that. Right. Okay. What he was talking about there is this bit here or that bit there, or mind that job over it 2 weeks ago. Aye, that was what that was. And you're like, all right.
Joins the dots for you.
So aye, you were joining the dots. Aye,
well.
That's very much missing. But, and I mean, you talk about it and it's like, I was talking about getting your core qualification. We had plumbers, and I mean real plumbers, in where I served my time, because it was a plumbing heating company first and foremost, and then Alan King branched into this, branched into that, branched into the next thing. And there was one guy who had been in the Merchant Navy, and he'd come and done a 6-month course. And there's a couple of plumbers, wouldn't touch him.
Yeah.
Or can you take him along? And one of them was like, no, you're creating a monster. I'm not working with him. He's not a plumber. You know? And it was like, but, you know, and you see that more and more. And I mean, I've spoken about it multiple times as well, where you're getting Eastern Europeans, and I've got nothing against any Eastern European coming over here to work, but they've not got basic British foundation, which is based in the British standards. And I've seen things like we denso tape a lot of our pipe work if it's outside and stuff like that. It's a really sticky, horrible tape, and it's never changed. And I seen one guy putting lengths of malleable iron pipe through a bit of plastic 4-inch, and I went, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm going to bury that." And I was like, "No, you're not." "Oh, but I says you'll have to coat that in denso tape." "Oh, I don't want it. It's all sticky and it's horrible. I could slip it through this pipe." And I said, "Yeah, what if the pipe cracks and it floods?" "Oh, right. Oh, but I don't want to do that." And it's like, and when you point these things out, they actually think you're being
A job's worth.
you're being a job's worth, and you're like, but no, that it's quite what you're like that going, "Oh, I'm getting a sore head," because if you got building standards or anything coming along and looking at that, who put that in? Right, what else have you left?
Yeah.
And I mean, I really experienced it. I worked on a new build in 2014, and we were all taken into a site office and given our induction. I was the only person in that site induction who could speak English, right? The rest were Polish or Lithuanian or Romanian or whatever. The guy walks in, he puts a video on and he leaves. He comes back, and everyone's falling asleep or they're playing on their phone or whatever. The guy comes back in, right? Did you all watch that? Stop the video, right? Give us your CSCS, give me your CSCS cards, took a photocopy of them, and then you left, and everyone was good to go. It's like, well, the video was in English. Nobody speaks English apart from myself. Everybody was sleeping or doing whatever, So it's that kind of getting a kind of better joined up thinking, I think, more than anything else.
Yep. And then so for those say Eastern Europeans coming over, like I remember when there was quite a lot, especially my dad had a concrete flooring business, so they
Aye.
would pour all the concrete and finish the floors. And he had quite a big squad of guys. I think they were mostly from Poland, all really hard workers, all like actually were really good with everything, with the levels, they could do it. But I'm assuming that where they'd came from and they'd learned that was quite similar to what they'd came into, whereas there might just be differentiators on the plumbing environment abroad to here.
Aye, there's a big difference.
But there should be something that when you, like if you were coming here, you must almost need to do a competency of.
See, I'm sure Australia have got like a competency-based thing as well, and I'm sure Canada have as well, where you can't just go in and start. And I mean, I've been lucky enough in that, I taught in Namibia. Namibia, being a former British colony, used British standards. When I was in Antarctica, it was a British base. It was built on British, on British standards, so it was there as well. And it's, I've got nothing against anyone coming over here to work at all, but I think they do need to sit some kind of competency course, and City and Guilds have got, a certified workers course and things like that, because the likes of SNPF got rid of grandfather rights a few years ago, where it's like, oh, I know what I'm doing, I'll get a card sort of thing. And they have got now like assessed worker routes. These kind of things are set up, but there's little things, and I come up on it quite a lot when I'm on LinkedIn. I'll quite often put up the picture of the toilet wash hand basin combined. So you've got a toilet, and on the top of the toilet system, there's a little wash hand basin.
Yeah.
Scottish Water hate those, because you're mixing in water. You've got 5 fluid categories. Category 1 is cold water. Now, category 2 is heated water, or water which is impaired, shall we say. And I'll often take the students and I'll say to them, right, I've got a glass of water there. It is fluid category 1. I've put it in my car, right, and it's been sitting in my car for a hot day, right? And I got back in, it's warm, it doesn't taste the same. It's now fluid category 2. And it goes from fluid category 1 to fluid category 5. Fluid category 5 is effluent and, basically pee and poo, shall we say. But you've got a unit there which has got every category 1 to, I'm sure 1, 2, 3 and 5, all in the same thing. And the students say, well, what's wrong with that? And I got a lot of folk on LinkedIn going, oh, that's a great money-saving thing, and you'll save water. And you're like, no, because you're washing your hands with soap, so you've got hot and cold water going into this thing. You're washing your hands with it, and then that's going into that cistern. It might sit there for 2 or 3 weeks. You might go on holiday and then flush it. And then that's been sitting there stagnating for, and I mean, we get Scottish Water coming up, speaking to the apprentices, and I met one of their guys, Andy Porter. Andy comes up and gives a chat to the apprentices, and he always shows that picture and he says, you cannot fit these. you know. And there's other things like washing. You get these little shower heads for washing the inside of the toilet, you know, wash the skid marks off the toilet sort of thing. No, we don't fit those either, you know, because you could drop that hose in there and it's onto fresh water and then it's onto a little electric unit or something to heat it up or something. If you drop that into the toilet, somebody comes along and pees on it. And I mean, you've been on a building site, you've seen the state of some of the toilets, you know, you just need something like that. And then if there's a problem and anything backflows, you suddenly got that water getting siphoned back into the main supply and it could be sitting in that toilet bowl and then it's getting siphoned back into the main supply. Then somebody's going to the tap taking a drink. Little things like that. And it does happen. And that's why we have the Scottish water bylaws and the water regulations in England, because they know the problems that happen. And people don't take it on board until you get something like Legionella happening and stuff. And I mean, I was speaking to Kevin Wellman, who's the CEO at the Chartered Institute of Plumbing Heating Engineers the other day, and he was saying that he highlights scalding incidents. He said the amount of scalding incidents that they come upon is just astronomical. And he said, but people aren't interested. He said, but it's those little bits of plumbing that need to be highlighted more. More needs to be done to educate the public on that. And it's just like, yeah, but who's actually educating the public, you know?
And what's the answer on this? Is this just everything's trying to be done too fast now? So it's just get out onto site and just fit what you're fitting and just.
I think a lot of it comes down to, I'm in a new house and the drains haven't been put in properly. And I was able to tell that as soon as I walked into the house, because you do something called a performance test on a drain. So say I finish doing a wash hand basin, a sink for normal folk, plumbers call them wash hand basins. What you're supposed to do is fill that sink up till it gets to the overflow level. Let it overflow and you check it's no leaking. You're then supposed to take the plug out, let it drain away, make sure it's draining away properly, and at the end it shouldn't gurgle. If it gurgles, it's not been put in properly. It's the pipeline's been run too far and it's starting to vacuum, so it's pulling air in and it glug 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 through the trap. Once you've done that, you've got to then take a dipstick, push it in, and you've got to make sure you have 25 millimeters left in the trap. And you technically speaking, as per British standards and the performance test, you're supposed to conduct that test 3 times. Nobody does it.
Nah.
And I think it comes down to the drainage has been badly designed. And I've been in so many places, major buildings where the drainage just is an afterthought. And you're getting that problem. Now, I checked all 3 of my wash hand basins in my house, and I've got the same problem on every one of them. There are ways around it. But when the builder came round, I said, none of them. Well, how do you know? And I was like, I'm a plumber to trade. And I actually got the book and he said, we've got 98 houses on the site and they've all been done the same way by the same plumbing company. And you're like, well, that's exactly what you're going to come up on. And I mean, being a plumber, you get roped into doing stuff, and I'm on the local we've got a Facebook group for our site. And can we swap this? Oh, Jimmy will do it. You know, Jimmy will do this, Jimmy will do that. And the amount of little jobs I've done for folk, it's like, yeah, I've now worked in like 19 or 20 of these 98 houses, just doing little bits because it's a repeat thing.
Yeah. And
one of the mates went, oh, you know, you could keep yourself busy doing that forever. And I was like, exactly, that's why it's called plumbing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's quite it's one of these things where now mostly on sites everything's price work, so nobody's going to do those tests. They're just going to, and that sort of entitlement that we were speaking about as well, people mostly are going to go, well, this is the price I'm getting expected to do probably too much. Right. So I'm just not going to do the test, and that's up to somebody else to find if that's not working. It comes to
the thing as well that whoever's ordering this stuff will order it as a kit.
Yeah.
And we used to get the kit sent to the site with a drawing, and you go, right, okay. And we'd done them all anyway by that point. So you were like, right, well, we've done that and that last test, we'll run that way, boom, boom, boom. And if you get a kit that's got the main 4-inch stack, it's got an 1.25 connector for it, and it's there, and the wash hand basin's there, you're going to take that 1.25 one and run it to there. Yeah. End of story. You're not going to go, well, technically speaking, you can only run 1.25 for 1.7 meters. You know, so realistically, you should have 1.5 inches, which then runs, you can run 1.5 for, you know, 3 meters, so you could run that 2.7, and then you could run that the rest of the way into the wash and base. No one's going to do that. They're going to rattle the thing in because, as you say, they're on a price. They've
That's
been
what's
given a
there.
kit, boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, and it goes. If it doesn't work, it'll get picked up at snagging.
The problem just gets passed down the
Aye.
line, and by that point, it's actually a bit too late.
And I mean, that's why there's a Welsh guy. I watch him on the socials quite a lot. Well, this is ridiculous, and he's like, oh, this wall's that far out of the plumb, and they've not done this with that, and you're not done that. And I always say to him, you should start doing some of the plumbing stuff, because I'll tell you now that none of the plumbing will be right in these places. And I mean, I say none of the plumbing. The plumbing generally tends to be good. And folks say, like, I've got Groy stuff in my house, Hans Groy. It's good stuff, but like, one of the toilets broke. One of my neighbours went, oh, my toilet seat's broken. And I was like, well, to buy a Hans Grohe toilet seat, it's 120 quid. Well, for a toilet seat. And I was like, no, it's a soft closed toilet seat. It's got this, it's got that, it's got that. Said, oh, go down to B&Q and get one for 20 quid. And I was like, well, that's up to you. But they have fitted good stuff.
Yep.
But the way it's been installed is just, you're looking at it going, oh, who installed that?
And that's always going to be the case. It could be the best product, but it comes down to who's fitting it.
Aye.
That probably leads us into another point of your LinkedIn posts as well. The boilers.
The boilers, I started raising this in 2021, really. I was chatting with the students one day, and I looked online and I saw that a guy had been done for fitting a boiler in a domestic house. And there are certain things that you use, like when you're prosecuting, you use what's called the Gas Safety Installation and Use Regulations. And the main points are 3.1, meaning that you're not competent, you've not sat a course. You're not qualified, which means you're not on the gas safe register. Or 3.7 means you're falsely pretending to be on the gas safe. You're falsely representing, or something like that, the wording says, to be on the gas safe register. And I thought, Jesus. So I started looking through. And I picked out that 80% of the prosecutions on the HSE website were exactly the same thing. And I'm like, well, why are we selling boilers to people who cannot legally fit them? And the way I looked at it, and no one's ever come back to me and said, that's no similar argument you can use. Like, I came down here today, I hired a car from Enterprise. I went into Enterprise and I chuckled to myself last night because I went into Enterprise and says, I'm here to pick up the car. And the guy said, can I see your driving license? And I went in my wallet, gave him my driving license, and he checked it. And I started saying, well, why don't we do that with gas boilers? If you want to buy a gas, I said anything really. You want to buy anything, why don't we do this? Mm-hmm. And the resistance from not just generally everybody across the board has been astronomical. And don't get me wrong, I've had support. I won the On the Tools Plumber of the Year in 2022 for raising this very issue, amongst other things. And I'm surprised, like yourself, I'm on LinkedIn, and we're all captains of industry. And I mean, over at Grange in Linlithgow, you've got the Sharps over there, Duncan and Barry. And Barry often jokes when he's at Installer Show that everyone's an MD or a CEO or a this or a that. And, you've got all these guys, there's like, I think they're Tim Robbins and all the rest, or Ted Robbins, whatever his code name is. And, they're all captains of industry. And you hit them with a problem like that, and suddenly, we can't do anything about that. You can't do anything about that. And I've had it this week. And, I've been saying this for a few years now. No gas safe card, no sale. Yeah. And I wanted it on anything. And ATAG, the boiler company, they're saying the same. They're saying anything that is gas critical. So a gas valve, gas hoses, gas boilers, gas cookers, gas fires, anything you need a gas safe ticket to install, you should be showing your gas safe card before we sell you that. And I have tried that, but the civil service in the UK Parliament said you'll never get that through. You've proven your case with gas boilers. Try and get gas boilers through. If you get gas boilers through, go for the rest. Yes. Get gas boilers through first, though. You've more than proven your case to everybody, but the resistance you get. I mean, I've now got the Association of Plumbing Heating Contractors. They came on board 2 weeks ago and said, look, how can we help you? They got in touch with me and said, how can we help you? Deborah Stevenson over at Corgi Services, the Old Council of Registered Gas Installers, they've come over as well and said, how can we help you to get the word out about this? So there's two major players in plumbing and heating. I've tried to get IGEM, the Institute of Gas Engineers and Managers. I've heard nothing from iGem. So if iGem are listening to this, please get in contact with me. I'm on LinkedIn. If you can't find me there, I'm in the Worshipful Company of Plumbers. I'm a fellow at the Chartered Institute of Plumbing and Heating Engineers. Please get in touch with me. I want to talk to you about this. I want your support. Because everyone tells you what they cannot do. And this is what I'm going back to with the captains of industry. You can do anything. You can be this, you can be that. Everyone on LinkedIn's saying this when they're sitting in their car. I don't know why they'll do the videos in the car, but that's a different story. But as soon as you raise a question like this, you get nothing back. And when I was at Installer Show, I went up to, and I'm going to name them, Glowworm, and I said to Glowworm, why do you sell your boilers to anyone? They said, we don't sell our boilers to anyone. We sell them to merchants, and it's up to the merchants to then check that the person is gas safe register. And I was like, I can see slopey shoulders happening here. You know, do you want a goodie bag? And I went, no, not really. No, I want you to answer my question. And then I've now started speaking to Worcester Bosch. And Worcester Bosch came back to me a couple of weeks ago, and Worcester Bosch said, we sell our boilers to reputable merchants. And I'm like, yeah, but the merchants aren't checking. And I checked this week. I put up a post and said to the merchants, I named merchants, MKM, Wolseley, Willie Wilson's up here, William Wilson's for the proper name. And I said, do you check the gas safe card? If you're selling a boiler to someone, right, and we know that 80% of the prosecutions for gas on the HSE website are people who are not qualified, not competent, or they're pretending to be on the gas safe register. Do you check their gas safe register before you sell them a boiler? And they all came back with, there's no legal requirement to do it. And I said, but yes, where do you stand ethically though? Because I wouldn't sell knives to children if I knew they were stabbing one another. And then going, oh, there's no restriction on it though. And the amount of people that said to me, you would need to change the law. And I said, well, change the law. You know, when I started the campaign, 2021, someone climbed into Windsor to shoot the Queen with a crossbow on Christmas Day. And a lot of people went, oh, I can't believe that you can get hold of a crossbow so easily. We need to change the law. And I think, well, if the law's that easy to change it. The laws are made to be either altered or changed. Do you know what I mean? But it's so ridiculous that when I raised it, HSE said, we can't do anything about this. And I said, well, if you can't do anything about it, I mean, Gas Safe Register report to the HSE. So the HSE are the main people to look at for that. But they won't speak to government about it. We tried, I do bits on Fixed Radio, and for Clive Holland and for Andy Cam as well. Andy Cam and Todd Glister they got me on in 2023 to discuss this. They invited Gas Safe Register on to discuss the sale of gas boilers to people who are not Gas Safe registered, and Gas Safe Register refused to publicly comment on that. And that was in the run-up to Gas Safety Week 2023. And I keep saying, and I said it there, I've said it twice in meetings over the past few days, how can it be that Gas Safe Register refuses to discuss gas safety in the run-up to Gas Safety Week?
Yeah.
You know, who else is going to discuss gas safety if Gas Safe Register
So
don't?
does it not say something about the credibility of it then, that
It's
difficult?
I mean, I don't. Sorry, how do you mean it's difficult?
Just so the credit, like, if they're going to if they're not checking, then what's the point in
the Gas Safe Register? The biggest problem you find with Gas Safe Register is they're looking for engineers to actually report any problems.
Yeah.
They'll only deal with it if you report it. If you RIDOR it, you know, if you put in a RIDOR forum, they will go and check it. But one of the problems you find with that is I had a problem with a boiler back in 2020, which had not been installed correctly. And the engineers came out to look at it again. And it was actually one of my friends got in contact, and they were like, oh, this guy came in, he said the boiler's fine, but there's a layer of soot all over the house, and it's no, you know, we're really worried about it, and we don't know what to do. My daughter's in the house with her new baby, and blah, blah, blah. And they sent me pictures, and you could actually there was like a fine layer of soot over everything. And they said, oh, it's not the boiler. But when the company came in to check the boiler, they actually switched all the cameras off in the house, because my friend's daughter's got special needs. And so they've got cameras in the house to keep an eye on her.
Yeah.
They'd switched off the cameras in the kitchen when they went to look at the boiler. And I riddled it. Gas safe register went up to do it. It was a local council house, a local council authority. And the authority wouldn't allow gas safe register into the house to inspect. Gas safe register can't do anything then. They're stuck. They came back to me and said, we can't get entry into the house. We can't force entry into the house. So there's nothing we can do at the moment. And I said, what happens in that case? And they said, well, what you'll probably tend to find happens. And they said, we've seen this before. If they replace the boiler, get the boiler back up and working, we go back in. We find a boiler that's working fine. Nothing we can do. Nothing to report on. You know? But that's that kind of, it's all a bit disjointed. And you've got people like the Institute of Gas Engineers and Managers. You've got Gas Safe Register. You've got SNP-F up here. You've got the APHC down the road. You've got the CIPHE. None of them, none of them think, like, let's get together collectively and do something about this. And it's like, right, I've now got two on board. And Deborah Stevenson from Corgi Services did come back to me the other day and said, we need to get a meeting with everyone together around the table to try and see if we can work some kind of plan out here. And that is my plan, but I've got another couple of meetings. One was supposed to be Monday, which didn't happen, unfortunately, because it's actually two guys I know really well. Once I can get them together and get their thoughts on it, I would like their insight for it. I can then move on and try and take it a bit further.
So you want it to be the law, essentially, that buying a boiler and you're going to go and fit it, you must have the gas safe register.
Yes, I want it. If you want to fit a boiler, you must be gas safe registered. End of story. And folks say, oh, but what about electrics? What about electric boxes? And what about that? If you've got a problem with electric boxes, start a campaign and run with it. You know what I mean? But don't jump onto a comment and go, oh, you can't do that because of that. And that's what I keep saying to people. People tell you what they cannot do.
Yeah. So you just want to hold it in this one space and go, boilers, let's do boilers first, look at everything else after that.
Exactly. All I want is, if you want a gas boiler, a domestic gas boiler, you go in, you show your stuff, boom. And folk have tried to pick my argument apart. What about online sales? What about this? What about that? If you actually look at it, and if you actually took the time to look through it, we've done the research, we've spoken to government ministers, we've got everything sitting there. There is a plan for everything. But people look at your argument and they just go, that won't work, because they don't go, right, how can we make this work?
Who does it affect the most if the change comes in? Is it the people who's no gas safe registered?
It would affect anyone not gas safe registered wouldn't be able to buy a boiler.
And so is it going to be then more expensive for the person who's getting the boiler fitted?
It shouldn't. And I mean, I've had this argument as well. I mean, you should be using a gas safe registered engineer anyway.
Yeah. It's a wee bit like with my solar business, we got like an MCS and stuff like that, but you can fit it without it.
Aye.
So like you're sometimes coming up against companies and they've no got it, and you're just like, it's not a legal requirement there, is it, to actually have it? So we had it because, like, the same way as most good gas engineers will get the gas safe register card because they know it's good practice. They probably want a bit of accountability to say, I'm part of this and I want to be governed by that.
It is a legal requirement. I mean, but unless somebody's actually checking, there are guys out there fitting 2-3 boilers a week, right? Now, they're no gas safe registered, but they're going out there now. They're fitting 2 or 3 boilers a week. Nobody bothers. I'm not needing to be on that register. If they get caught, and this is what I keep finding, if they get caught, they get fined. Most of the time, it's the cost of the job. Say it's like 5-6 grand. And they get put on they'll get a suspended prison sentence. And this is the joking bit, right? This is an absolute joke. They'll get a suspended sentence. And they'll continue. 2 or 3 years later, they'll get caught again by gas safe register. It'll go to court again, and they'll get another suspended sentence. And sometimes they're sitting a suspended sentence, and they'll get another suspended sentence. Or they'll get like a prohibition notice. Don't work on gas until you're on the gas safe register. And they just continue. And the amount of it's going up and up, the amount of repeated prosecutions for the same crime. He got done for fitting a gas boiler, but he was done 3 years ago for exactly the same crime. And you're going, all right, so he's got a suspended sentence. You've given another one. You've given him a prohibition notice. But there is nothing stopping him going to any merchants in the country and buying a boiler. So he's going, right, I'll give you $5,000 because realistically, I've cleared $9,000 this week fitting boilers, right? So, and you catch me every 3 or 4 years. So what's the point of me being on the gas safe
And
register?
are these people fitting them wrong?
In many cases, yes. And I mean,
is that just cutting corners and doing it a bit quicker to make more money and then
you're getting guys who they'll have a gas analyzer. So they'll stick the boiler on the wall, they'll switch it on, you're getting heat of the radiators, you're getting hot water. Do I need to check the gas rates? No, I don't. Do I need to check the working pressure? No, I don't. Do I need to check I've sealed the flue? No, I don't, because I've not got any of that equipment. I've fitted the boiler on the wall, and you can fit the boiler on the wall, pipe it up, walk away. And that's what they're doing. Then you're getting a gas safe registered engineer coming in going, well, I tested this and the gas was dropping. They've not sealed the flue properly. It was supposed to be set to this with their analyzer. They've no bother commissioning it. The amount of plumbers I meet who say that they go to gas boilers and you've got a benchmark book comes with every boiler. The benchmark book isn't filled in. Who fitted your boiler? I don't know. And when I was in Ireland last year, we were having a kind of group discussion in Stantor, and someone said that you're talking about they said that they'd come up with a figure, and I've still got to get this confirmed, so don't take this as gospel. Only 17% of boilers in the UK actually get registered properly. And I've asked Worcester Bosch and I've asked Globeron for their figures. I asked Worcester Bosch last week, I said, so say you sell 60,000 boilers, right? Do you get 60,000 guarantee registers coming back to you? They didn't have that figure. And I'm like, well, realistically, if I've bought 5 cars and I sell them on, I'd be expecting to produce 5 registration books. If you know, where's those other ones going?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they've kind of skirted about it. And somebody said, that's why boiler companies are so keen to offer you a 10 or a 12-year guarantee on your boiler. Because they know that, roughly 20% of their boilers will ever actually be registered.
So see if they made it essentially that was the only way you could buy a boiler is by having that, then what do these people who's no participating in that have to do then? Would they need to go and get relevant qualifications?
They need to go and get themselves, they need to go and sit a course. So, I mean, BPEC do a course, Logic do a course. There's plenty of bodies that will do a course. Once you've done the course, you then have to get on the gas safe register.
Yep.
A lot of folk go, you sit a course and then you go and fit boilers. No, it's a bit like sitting your driving test. Yeah, you can sit your driving test, you'll get your license. But if you want to drive a car, you've got to get your insurance, you've got to get your car, you've got to get your MOT certificate, blah, 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 before you jump in the car. And it's the same. Once you sat that gas course, you then apply to be on the gas safe register. Gas safe register will send you the paperwork through, you fill it out, you'll do whatever they need you to do, you'll pay your fees, then you're on the gas safe register. You'll be inspected. The gas safe inspector, most of the time it's online these days, they'll come on, ask you a few questions. You might get an inspection if you're lucky, and he'll come up and look at your job and, all right, how have you done that? What have you done there? He'll give you a list of recommendations, so you're keeping the standard up, sort of thing. But realistically, that's what they would have to do. But at the end of the day, you've got a load of guys paying for gas safe registration who are, they're paying into that. But realistically, you've got a load of guys in the background buying boilers and fitting them, and nobody seems to care.
Yeah, it's a bit hard for the guys that actually do see the relevance to it and do it right. And then,
I mean, other people as well going, but there's folk on the gas safe register who leave all these other problems. It's like, yeah, but if the HSE weren't dealing with people who are unregistered, it would open them up to look at these people and then start inspecting things properly. But it's like I say, more people look for problems, and they look for what you can't do when you raise an issue, rather than go, right, he's raised an issue, how can we look at this? And it's like I often say, I'm just a stupid plumber. You've got all these industry bodies, that are getting paid millions for doing what they do. And when you point out a problem, they ignore you. IGEM have ignored me, and it's like I say, if they want to speak to me, phone me up, get in touch, whatever. There are multiple ways. But yeah, so far, nothing.
Tough. I see it with the roofing myself. It's somebody could just go and get a van, set of ladders, get some tools, go and chap someone's door and say, "You've got a couple of tiles off there, Mrs. Smith. I'll sort them for you now." She gets scared. Okay, on you go. They go up there and they do whatever. Come back down. Right, actually, it's a bit worse than we thought. It's going to be more. And this happens right on the very
Aye.
doorstep of, vulnerable people, whether they're elderly or just vulnerable in other ways. It's horrible. And then it makes it harder for all the good companies that then you come back. Like, they need to then get someone out to fix this properly, because usually it's done wrong. So reputable companies will go back, and then, the job's either, right, it actually all needs redone, or, it's not been done at all,
Aye.
whatever it is. And then you're then having to charge this person again, and they've already just paid money and somebody's away with that. But there's nothing there that says it's the same thing. If they go into a merchant, they could just get the materials. If they want, if they can just, I know, like, going and buying ladders, it would maybe be a bit severe to say, well, you can't have them ladders if you're not on some kind of roofing register. But essentially, there's zero regulation in roofing in Scotland. I think there's something in England, but
there's pretty much zero regulation across the trade. So if you look at it, it was back about 2020, Jamie Halcrow-Johnson, who is one of the MSPs, he tried to bring in protected status. And this is what I keep pushing for as well, protected status. Because he'd seen it in Sparkying, Sparky's, anyone can set up as a Sparky, was what his argument was.
yeah.
They could paint Jimmy Hendry, Sparky on the side of a van, and off they go. And folks, but what about 18th? What about that? They don't care. They don't care, And I say to them, like, my good lady is a solicitor. You cannot set up as a solicitor unless you have done the proper qualification.
Yeah.
It is illegal. It's illegal to class yourself as a gas engineer, and that's why you're seeing these people getting done. It's illegal to class yourself as a doctor, But I could set up as Jimmy Hendry the joiner tomorrow, and leave devastation.
Yeah, and it's
everywhere.
happening. It's happening all
and
over.
You're seeing it a lot with plumbing. I was in a focus group a few weeks back there with Paul Williams, who's a very well-respected plumber down in Wales, and one of the other guys in the course was a retired policeman who'd started doing plumbing. All right, what course did you say? Oh, didn't it? I'd swapped my neighbour's taps and it was fairly easy. So I then went on and swapped her toilet, and it was a bit jiggery pokery, but I got it in and I'm like, oh no, that's hurt my brain just to think about. You know what I mean? But it's largely unregulated, and going back to the gas quickly. Who would it help? It would help domestic customers. It would help people who don't even realise that they need this help.
Mm-hmm.
And someone said to me, it would need a big thing to happen. It need like a Grenfell type thing to happen for real change to come about. And I said, well, we nearly had that, because in 2017, none of the gas was put in correctly in the Inverness Royal Academy. And you can Google this, type in Inverness Royal Academy gas, and it comes up that the HSE inspected the gas pipes in the Inverness Royal Academy and condemned the whole building. So they switched the whole gas off to everything in the Inverness Royal Academy. And in the summer of 2017, another company went in and had to replace every single gas pipe.
That's a big deal.
And you think, if that had gone boom, that's a whole high school, boom. And then folk would have went, and it's that level of change that we need to see. Because when I served my apprenticeship, we had about 7 full-time plumbers. There was a lot more, but they cut them down. All 7 of them were Corgi registered at the time.
Yep.
Whereas nowadays, you'll get a big company, it's maybe got 40 plumbers. 3 or 4 of them will be gas safe registered. All the plumbers will fire the gas in, and then one guy will go along at the end, he'll put a test on it, right, that's working fine. Job signed off. And that was what happened up at the Inverness Royal Academy. Everyone's having a go on it. Somebody signs it off at the end of the day, and then they'd found that they jointed one load of pipe using like Boss White and hemp, and then another one had been done with PTFE tape. Some of it had been done with gas sealing tape.
No consistency.
No, it has to be the same material throughout, and that's why they were like, that's condemned, because you've got a bit of PTFE hanging out of that joint there, and you've got a bit of hemp hanging out of that one there. Bump, the whole job.
It's wild. Mm-hmm. What's next for you then?
I've got a few things. I'm pushing the gas at the moment. I'm still trying to push defibs. Now, defibs, the amount of sites that don't have a defib unit is unbelievable. and they don't see the need. And I mean, one of my friends, John Aird, John lives over in Tranent. Oh, I'm saying that right, over just the other side of Edinburgh here.
Yep.
And his brother Davy died on a site 2021, massive heart attack, and no defib on the site. And I mean, I wouldn't expect there to be one on everywhere you go. If folk are pushing defibs. But they say Davy might have had a chance if there had been a defib on site.
Yeah.
And I actually got in touch with, I've got some quite good connections with Morrison's and Galliford Try up in Inverness. They've got a big office up there. I got in touch with Alistair Gill, who is their head of health and safety. And I said, Alistair, what do you do with this? And he said, we've already done this, Jimmy. We have pushed defibs out. He said, if we put on a big site, there's a defib on the site. At the end of the job, 9 times out of 10, we donate that defib to the build at the end, job done. He says it's great for things like Consider It Constructor scheme. It makes us look good. When we register it, we also register it with the ambulance service, 999, etc. He said, so if someone phones and says, oh, well, my dad's had a heart attack. All right, that's great. There's a defib unit on this building site across the street. You go over, you get it from the site office. You've got that there. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, I rather cheekily, and I say this, FES, Fourth Electrical Services along in Stirling, they'd put up a couple of things about, you're getting folk ready for site, and they had their high-vis and their hard hat and their safety boots, and I said, have you got a defib unit? And I never got a reply. So a couple of weeks later, they'd been doing a school visit, and the same again, we're getting folk ready for going into construction, hard hat, high-vis, and I went, have you got a defib unit? And I got a message from one of the girls in the office saying, can you get in touch with Jason Cross? He's one of our directors. So I said, yeah, fair enough. So I got in touch with them, and FES are a good company. I say that because we kind of worked hand in hand with A&L King and FES going up through the ranks, and the Fletcher family who have got FES, we worked a lot with them. Mm-hmm. And I phoned Jason. Quite a lot of my friends who were at A&L King are now at FES. I phoned Jason, and Jason says, basically, what's your problem? And I said, my problem is I'm seeing this, but I'm not seeing defib units, and I want to get defib units on the site. I says, my mate John, his brother's died. I says, I'm now looking at it. I'm starting to do a bit of research. There's been at least 2 deaths on the HS2 because people have died of heart attacks, and I'm not seeing anything about defib units. And given their due, FES went, right, okay, we'll look at it. They started rolling out defib units. And I think if we can get every major builder to start doing that, you would start to see a bigger difference. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
It needs to save one life, and it's all been worthwhile.
Aye, exactly. Really.
It's... Nobody should go to their work and not come home.
No. And, I mean, for something...
If there was a prevention measure as well.
Well, this is it. And, I mean, you're talking about jobs that are like 20, 30 million pound. And the way Alistair Gill put it to me was, well, we can buy a defib unit for about, I think it's about 800 or 900 quid, which is buttons. It's absolute buttons when you think.
The grand scheme of the job.
Aye, the grand scheme of the job, it's nothing. And just to have it there, I mean, would say, you're potentially saving, because no one wants a death. No one wants a death on their site. And you think, if I'd only spent 700 or 800 quid, I could have had a defib unit there. Do you know what I mean? Now, what I'm going to say to you, Jamie, is, have you got a defib unit?
I've no.
Right.
So, but I was going like that, the cogs were turning.
I can see the cogs turning.
But that is it. You made me think about it. I was thinking, is there any in this industrial estate?
Aye.
I don't know.
It's one of those ones.
There's some big businesses in here that there's
this is it. And
hundreds and hundreds of employees. We're quite small. There's maybe about 10 of us in this office, and then most of the guys on site, there's 30 odd of the roofers. But
I mean, FES's argument, and I could quite see that as well, was FES said we subcontract out a lot. So it doesn't always make sense to have, we don't have a site office as such. So it wouldn't really make sense for us to have that. But what we could start doing is our site agents who are going out to look at a site, make sure there's one in their car. Mm-hmm. If we have got a bigger job where we've got 50, 60 guys on that site, let's get a defib unit into that. And that was Jason's thinking, and give Jason Cross his due. He listened, we had a chat about it, he was very good, and he acted upon that. And you just need...
Sometimes it is just a reminder as well.
Aye, and I mean...
It's very easy to get...
With construction, it's one of those ones that you've got a lot of guys who, and I mean, this is something else that came up, the drink and drugs thing. You've got a lot of guys who drink in construction. You know, you've got a lot of guys who take marching powder in construction. You know, it's no hidden, and it's one of those things that it's one of those other areas. You know, he's not in the best of health. He's drinking quite heavily. He's had a heart attack and he's died. Folk didn't look at that and go, oh, you know, well, that guy's died. Oh, but he was a heavy drinker. They just go, he's dead, and he died on your site. And so, you know, suddenly somebody's in the spotlight, and we don't look at the underlying things. And that's one of the other areas I've often highlighted is the amount of people who are at their work and impaired, because we see things. And I mean, with drink and drugs, it's something I started highlighting in HVP magazine, the plumbing magazine, heating, venting and plumbing, and then alcohol awareness. And then you had Alcohol Change UK got in touch with me and said, can you share your experiences? So if you type into Google Jimmy Hendry, alcohol change plumber, you'll get the full story on that as well.
Yep.
And what we were finding was the amount of people who are coming to work either hungover for the night before or still drunk, you know. And then folks, what about the drugs? I was like, well, the drugs are there as well. But when I started looking into it, it was like the top 10 drink drivers in the UK, they were all off a building site.
Yeah.
And the plumbers were the worst.
Yeah.
You know, you're going, oh my God. And the HSE don't test people. They just don't test them. If you had an accident, you fell off the roof, you know, fall from height. I'm sure it's fall from height's like the biggest one. And it's no fell from height because he was still drunk for the night before.
No, it's just fell from
height. Struck by a moving vehicle. Aye, because the guy driving the vehicle was still hungover or he was still drunk for the night before. You know, and we were on a big job, and I raised it, and it was just like, oh, what are you raising that for? Drop the subject.
And do you think that's what's it kind of is happening? A lot of this stuff is just getting brushed under the carpet. Really.
It doesn't get mentioned.
Because then the other thing on top of that is, if you look at the drugs and the alcohol thing, it's usually going to be linked to something else, which is either going to be a mental health concern or something's going on in that person's life or whatever it is. Because anybody who's turning up to work under the influences must have something going on, or do you know, there's some kind of issue there.
There's that many like high functioning alcoholics knocking about. It's unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, my mate will quite often drink quarter or a half bottle a night, 6 cans, go to his bed at 2 a.m, get up at 6 a.m, go back on the site. Wow. And that's his life. You know what I mean? And that's just what he does. And Callum McIntosh got in touch with me because I started raising this on Fixed Radio. Callum McIntosh is president of the Scottish Plant Operators Association. He lives up in Inverness beside me. And he said, I started trying to introduce it so that if you went to work on site and you're operating a machine or a crane or whatever, first thing you do an alcohol test. If you're impaired, if you're over the limit, we send you home for the day. We don't fire you, we don't sack you, we're not out to get anybody. We just send you home for the day and say, come back tomorrow and we'll test you again. If you're fine, off you go. You've lost your day's wages, but the resistance he met from the Plant Operators Association was unbelievable. You can't do that, because they know the extent of the problem. Yeah. And they don't want to address it. And I mean, somebody said, have you tested everyone for alcohol before they went on site? You lose so many bodies.
I've heard that one.
And we've already got a skills shortage, and you're like, yeah, I know, but, you know, I had an apprentice come to me one day and say, I'm working with a guy, and he's so drunk he can't hold the drill. You're like, right, okay.
Is this when you were a lecturer?
Aye. And, I mean, I've had other ones. I was working for a plumber in Perth, and he said to me, can you come to this job, looking at this job? So I got there and I went, where's the other plumber? Oh, he got here and he's drunk and he'd knocked something over and he's left a leak, and, you know, and I'm like, all right, okay. I said, what have you done with him? Oh, I sent him home. He's driven home. He can sleep it off. And I went, oh, he's driven home in your van, drunk. And he went, oh, no, just don't say anything. Don't say anything else, you know. And I'm like, that's exactly what you're up against, you know. And folks say, oh, you know, I mean, you'll hear folk going, oh, shouldn't they be at work today? And you think, how did you get to work? How did you get there?
Drink
driving, you know. And folks say, oh, it's different if you work in an office, you know. All right, it's different, you know. I mixed up your wages because I was drunk last night. So you're £200 short in your month's wages this
Yeah.
month, Or it's like folks say, oh, what does it really, I'm doing a gas test on something, but I'm still a bit hungover, so I'm only going to half do that job right. I've not checked everything because my head's still all over the place with that drinking session last night. That's when it starts to tell. But as I say, when I looked at it, the HSE don't check anything. They steer clear of it. They say, oh, it's a police problem. Now, Callum McIntosh has had discussions with the police. I've also had discussions with the police on it. And the police will only stop a car if you give them the make, model, the time, blah, blah, blah. So if you say, oh, Jimmy Hendry, he gets in his car at 7 every morning, this is a registration, and he drives this route and he's drunk every morning, the police will be waiting for him. But the police will not wait outside a site and say, right, let's test him, let's test him, let's test him, and see. Because I think if they did, they would get a real shock. But it's one of those ones that no one in the trade wants to discuss it because there's such a big problem with
massive.
it. Aye.
It's massive. It's where we should probably be looking at the reasons of why it's happening as well.
Well, I mean,
it's another rabbit hole.
There's a guy, James Roke, down in England. He got killed because there was a machine reversed and hit him, killed him. First day on site. He's about 21, 22, and his parents are demanding answers. And I'm like, yeah, you are right to demand answers.
Yeah.
But they've said that even the HSE were very poor in reporting back to them. And the HSE had to apologise to this guy's parents. And they're going, oh, but he should have been safe and he should have been that. That's typical. It is typical site behaviour. And I always say, if you want to look at how good a site is, go into the toilets. Walk into the toilets and look at the toilets. Because I'll tell you what, if there's a set of toilets for the site management and another set of toilets for the site workers, that tells you, first and foremost, that there is a difference there. Because you often find that site workers' toilets are so poor, it's unbelievable, or heaters aren't working, toilets are blocked, this is that, or I've not had a clean, or there isn't a cleaner in there, or it's a boombox, as they call them, and it's getting serviced once a week if you're lucky, and you've got maybe 10 guys every day using that one toilet. So by the end of the week, you're pulling the flush handle and you're getting brown or green water coming out because it's just absolutely stinking. And that is the reality of pretty much every site. And then you've got folk going, oh, this shouldn't happen and that shouldn't happen. And you've got this big discourse of things that happen in meetings and the reality of being on site. And I see loads of people who are associated with the trade loosely, shall we say, like merchants providers or professional bodies, and they're having a big meeting and you're going, you've got not one tradesperson in that meeting at all. You're all there with your canopies and your wine and you're all, we made a fortune from plumbing this year. And you're like, you've never seen a plumber in your life. You wouldn't know a plumber if you looked at them.
What gives you the sort of passion and the drive to keep going with it? Because it's obviously getting met with resistance and nobody wants any of the changes you're talking about. All very strong, relevant points that need dealt with.
I think the thing that keeps me going more than anything is the general lack of anything back. More than anything back, the general feedback you should be getting from the industry of, you've highlighted a problem, we recognise the problem, now we can deal with it. What you'll get back is, we recognise the problem, but all these barriers are in the way to solving that problem, more than anything. And that's when you think, well, I'm obviously doing something right. I'm highlighting the right things here because, On the Tools awarded me Plumber of the Year 2022. I was also shortlisted for the AGSM, the Corgi Gas Rising Star Award in 2023. The Heating and Plumbing Monthly magazine shortlisted me for Initiative of the Year for raising this as well. So there are people out there going, he is on the right track, he is raising the right issues, but we have an industry like that. They've either got their ears closed or their eyes closed because they don't want to address the problem. And that's it. They just don't want to address the problem. They're happy with the status quo the way it is. So they're just like, oh, we won't raise that. We don't care that, I think it was 2022, 2023 year. There was something like 51 deaths in construction. And the next number down was forestry. There was like 21. And I'm like, you've got over double the death rate in that industry, but you don't see a problem. If it was one site and you had 51 deaths in a year, that's one person a year getting killed. You'd shut that site down. But because it's, I'm up in Scotland and he's over in Suffolk and he's down in Plymouth, so it doesn't really matter. But if you were at your work and one person a week was getting killed, you wouldn't go to work. You'd be like, that site's unsafe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, when you've got these major bodies and they are quite happy to discuss issues which are convenient, that's when you know, because as soon as you raise something which isn't convenient, everyone shuts up or they tell you why you can't do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And that gives me a lot of drive. You go, yeah, there's been certain things have happened over the last couple of years whereby you look at it and go, everyone else is in agreement here, but you have one person who is against it, and that's when you go, can it really be that wrong? Do you know what I mean? What I am raising here, and I mean, I've had resistance. I've been called out on a couple of things. You can't say this. You can't say that. You can't say the next thing. Personally, I've been investigated probably 6 or 7 times into things I've said. Prove me wrong. Quite happy. I got a cease and desist in 2022. Stop speaking about this because this guy doesn't like the fact you're speaking about him. And I'm like, but am I wrong? And my solicitor looked at it and said, you're not wrong, but it's not really your fight. And I went, yeah, I can't disagree with that. But at the end of the day, you had a guy on LinkedIn going, be you, I'm me, and don't look for faults, look for solutions, and I'm solution driven. And then in the background, you've got all these other things happening, and then this guy disappears over to Dubai, where he now lives, and everyone's been left high and dry. And you're going, what? He's going, oh, I'm out of pocket as well. Really? Are you really out of pocket? Because you're living in Dubai. Meanwhile, the guy that you employed hasn't got a job and he's losing his house and nobody knows where his tax has gone. Nobody knows where his pension's gone. So has it really affected you that badly? I don't think so.
I'll be sure not to argue with you on LinkedIn then, Jimmy boy. Nah, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thanks for coming on. We covered a lot of topics there, and they are hard ones, like just from the point of view is when you try to get to the solution, there is a lot of barriers, but fair play to you for raising them and continuing to do so. And everything that you're saying leads back to facts and evidence as well, that there's stats to prove that what you're saying is correct. So,
I mean, I'm up for anything. If anyone wants to come back to me and say, you're wrong on this, but we can do this. I used to work for a guy when I was in Namibia, Eckhart, and Eckhart would say to me, I've got a desk, Jimmy, it's full of problems, right? Bring me a problem, but bring me your solution. Don't just go boom. And I've said to Gas Safe, I've said to this guy, that guy, here's the problem. This is how you can fix it. But they don't want to see that. And I mean, if somebody comes back to me and says, you can't do this, all right, what can I do then? Because this is what I want to change. Please come back to me. If you're listening to this at the moment, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on socials. As I say, I'm in the Worshipful Company of Plumbers down in London. We've been on the go since 1365, so I should be easy to find. I'm a fellow in the Chartered Institute of Plumbing Heating Engineers. If you want to get in touch with me, please, many people do get in touch with me through the Chartered Institute of Plumbing Heating Engineers. You can get in touch with me there, LinkedIn as well. Get in touch with me, send me a message, send me a connection request. I will happily accept it and discuss it. But don't just come to me and say, here's a problem. Bring me your solution for what I'm raising as well.
Nice one, Jimmy. Thanks for that, mate. Appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Well, guys, thank you for watching to the end of the episode. As always, remember to subscribe and leave a comment down below to let us know what you thought. And I'll see you on the next one.